The question is, what's the most effective way to make progress? Again, I don't think there's any one answer to that. It will depend on a bunch of different things. Often, it's staying and deepening into what is. That's the most effective way to make progress. That's what the paradoxical theory of change is saying. We don't change by trying to change ourselves, because then we're just dividing against ourselves. And that creates a kind of tension in our system, in our bodies, in our psyches. That creates a tension that is not conducive to change. When we come into and feel into, let's say there is some division, there is some dividing against ourselves. When we come into that, really feel into that, how am I divided? What are the different things that are at play here? Come into that. That creates a kind of ground for change.
Today, I'm speaking with Dr Rhys Price-Robertson, a Gestalt therapist who creates space for clients to explore their awareness, authenticity and aliveness. His work is informed by years of clinical practice, a grounding in Zen, and a deep commitment to inclusivity and cultural humility. Rhys is also a widely published writer, faculty member of Gestalt Therapy Australia, and a respected figure in the Australian psychotherapy community. In this conversation, we explore what therapy can look like when it's both relational and spacious, and how it can support people in making contact with themselves in a fuller way. Welcome, Rhys.
Thank you, Laura.
I'm really happy to have you joining me here. And I'm really interested in a couple of things that you have written about and that you're also interested in. Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit about how you came to therapy, whether that's personally or professionally? Just, I guess, a bit about how you see your work.
I feel like I had a very important relationship with a therapist when I was about 19. And I think I got it in my head at that time, or I got the idea like, I want to work like this. He did psychodrama. He was he was an older guy at the time and a well-known psychodrama therapist in Australia. And he, had a big influence on me. And I think I wanted to work in that way. And then fast forward quite a few years, and then I was in my mid-20s and I thought, I'll go study psychology. Okay, I want to become a therapist. I didn't know that there were different avenues of psychotherapy outside of psychology, so I studied psychology. I did that and I got into honours at when I might have been 27 or something like that. And I was just I still felt so anxious and so not ready to sit with people in the type of way that this therapist that I'd worked with had been. I'd got this taste of I think really good kind of experiential, embodied kind of therapy. And I just thought I was not there. There's no way I'm ready for that. And so I kind of, at the last minute, the week I was meant to start doing honours in psychology, I got out of it and did something completely different. I was good at academic work, and so I just kind of went into that and did that for about 10 years. Then going back a couple of years, then I got together with a new partner, the mother of my kids, and she started, not long after we got together, she started to study Gestalt therapy. We had our first child, Sydney, and I'd take him along to the Gestalt therapy weekends. And I know you studied the same course at GTA, so you know what it's like. There are these big weekends, and some of them are residential. And so I'd take our young son along when he was still being breastfed. And so I got this it felt like a kind of front row seat to see what this course was about. I mean, I'd heard of Gestalt therapy, but I knew hardly anything. And what I saw was, I'm jumping around a whole bunch, I'm aware of that. In that 10 years when I was doing when I said I was doing academic work and so on, I also did I spent some time overseas, or before my studies actually, time overseas doing meditation centres in a monastery. And I'd been exposed to a lot of, I guess, kind of meditation type work or spiritual type practices. And there were a bunch of things I had strong aversions to, or I'd really was kind of averse to things like a kind of guru worship that I saw in a bunch of places, or a sort of one right way, one truth type thing that I'd seen in a lot of places, that we've got the right practice and other people's practices are lesser. I became very sensitive to things like this. And when I went on these Gestalt therapy weekends, I saw an alternative. I saw people doing what seemed like really good work and really serious about what they were doing, and it didn't have any of that spiritual kind of bullshit that I'd grown really averse to. It didn't have any, so I felt really attracted to it. I was like, oh, this is what I wanted to do. I'd sort of thought the option was you study psychology, and it was so not what I wanted to do. Studying psychology and the rats and stats and whatever else, it was so not captivating to me. And then when I saw this Gestalt therapy, I'm like, that is what I'd imagined doing when I was 19 or something. That's the kind of work I wanted to do. And so, yeah, when Amy, the mother of my kids, finished studying the course, I started the year after it. And that was probably, I don't know when, 2016 or something. No, 2015 maybe.
In terms of in your Zen journey and time in monasteries and doing that deep self-study, but also learning about meditation and mindfulness, what are the similarities, do you think, with Gestalt psychotherapy? Do they fit together for you in some ways?
They definitely fit together in some ways. I mean, they're similar and different. I think it's the similarities and the difference that I think makes them really complementary. I don't know, some people talk about this idea of like there's kind of like growing up and waking up, like on the spiritual path, the growing up and the waking up elements to it. And I think they need to go together, those two things. And a lot of if you go to places that are just about a kind of spiritual path, if you're just at your monastery or your ashram or whatever else, there's often this big emphasis on the waking up component of it. It can easily lean towards a kind of transcendent, something kind of that has a kind of spiritual bypassing type flavor to it. I think it can so easily lead to that. And often there's kind of mixed instructions. There's often a thing like we're being with what is, and then there's these other things like, I don't know, there's these other instructions that have this quality of just kind of, okay, becoming bigger than our feelings or our problems or whatever, some kind of transcendent notion. And I think that's fine and good as long as it's balanced by like doing this work of the kind of growing up work that goes along with it. And I think growing up is often about how we are in relationship, and that therapy can get at those bits in ways that maybe the waking up practices can't get at as easily. And also on the other side, if you're just doing therapy and you don't have this bit, for me, it feels like it's missing something really important. It's missing some kind of context, which is about what's our relationship to nature and to the cosmos, and much bigger questions about our lives, existential questions or questions about, how do we fit into the universe and what is a human life about? And maybe some types of therapy can bring them in, but I feel like, the growing up and the waking up, and both are really important. I think today we might have an idea that we're talking about the paradoxical theory of change is something that I've been interested in recently, sort of presenting on and thinking a lot about. And for me, that's a point. It's like the perfect point actually where, say, my interest in Zen and my interest in Buddhism and a spiritual path, it feels like it meets Gestalt therapy at that exact point. And that's what I love about it. It makes it feel to me like I can hold what I would think of as like a spiritual perspective, or I can be doing like spiritual work, and maybe I can define what I mean by that term or something, but because that can mean a lot of things. But in therapy, I can be kind of holding a frame that to me feels like the frame that I hold when I'm, doing a Zen meditation retreat. It's the same frame, and it's something about, being with what is without trying to change it. Hopefully today we can we're unpacking that more. It's that point on the paradoxical theory of change that, it just feels like a meeting point to me between what my understanding of spirituality and my understanding of Gestalt therapy, and maybe like what I see, and this is just me, other people would have different feelings about, but what I see is the kind of maybe like really at the heart of Gestalt therapy as I understand it.
Can you define or explain a bit about the paradoxical theory of change?
Okay, I'll start with the simple one and then hopefully we'll unpack. So, put it simply, it's like this idea that we change not by striving to be different to who or what we are, but rather by coming more fully into who and what we are. That's the paradox bit. Like, I'll put it differently, and just to really highlight the paradox. Like, if we want to change, the most effective way to do that is to stop trying to change. So it has that paradoxical feel.
Yes. Very paradoxical.
Yeah, it has that paradoxical feel. And it feels like Zen, right? I don't know what your exposure, but that Zen's like shot through with this sense of paradox. It's like the aesthetic of the tradition is this kind of embrace of and this kind of reveling, this rolling around in paradox. And so, again, it just feels like it feels so congruent. They feel so kind of congruent there. And it's dealing with the same kinds of things. It's like, how do you Like there's all these sort of things that you work with in Zen. It's like, how do we find like this negotiation of, we feel like an impossible negotiation between like effort and non-effort. And I think it's a similar things come up in this with the paradoxical theory of change. It's like just leaning into the paradox. Yeah.
It makes me think of, and even being a Gestalt therapist and having studied this and having done a lot of Gestalt therapy, I still find myself attempting to use my will to change something. Is there a place for will in change?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I think, of course there is. And somehow what this points to, it's pointing to a sort of a grappling that we need to do between, sort of will on the one hand, doing, and then sort of grace on the other hand, or being. We somehow need to grapple with that and work with that. I don't think the paradoxical change is sort of saying like, or the way that I take it or like to think about it, it's not saying like this is all that you should do 100% of the time, or this explains like everything that you need to do, or that this is a complete theory of change. Because it's interesting, it's like the paradoxical theory of change, and that's a term that gets used in psychotherapy and in other forms of psychology. This is definitely not a complete theory of change. If we want to talk about, well, what allows people to change in therapy, we'd need to bring in a lot more than just an attitude that the therapist is holding or is guiding certain interventions. So it's not a complete theory of change, and it's not saying everything about what we need to do in therapy. But it is important because there's different elements to this. I feel like our culture there's such a premium placed on like willfulness in our culture. Yeah, our culture just has this kind of drive, this kind of capitalist drive. I've got my computer here because I want to read a few quotes. This quote just came to mind from a recent talk I did on this. Can I pull it up and just read a thing?
Absolutely. Because
this is by this beautiful book by Francis Weller, who talks a lot about grief. And he's talking about like dissent in our culture. So I'll just read this out. It is challenging to honour the dissent in a culture that primarily values the ascent. We like things rising, stock markets, the GDP, profit margins. We get anxious when things go down. Even within psychology, there is a premise that is biased towards improvement, always getting better, rising above our troubles. We hold dear concepts like progress and integration. These are fine in and of themselves, but it's not the way psyche works. Psyche, we must remember, was shaped by and is rooted in the foundations of nature. As such, psyche also experiences times of decay and death, of stopping, regression, and being still. Much happens in these times that deepen the soul. When all we are shown is the imagery of ascent, we are left to interpret the times of descent as pathological. We feel that we are somehow failing. I really love that. And I think like what he's saying there, say about our culture, about psychology, we could look at that about the whole wellness culture. We could look at the whole therapeutic culture. There's this sense of improving ourselves. There's this strong sense of, improving ourselves, bettering ourselves, a kind of pursuit of wellness, a pursuit of happiness. There's this very strong need for, I think, for a kind of corrective, which is like, what is it like to not do that? What happens, what gets facilitated when we step off the kind of treadmill of improvement, when we step off that. And I think that's what the paradoxical theory of change is inviting us to do. It's to step off the kind of treadmill of improving ourselves. And it's inviting the therapist to hold a space for clients and it's not going to happen all at once and it doesn't happen all the time. There's definitely still room for will and there's still room to do things. But I see the emphasis on this and my passion for this comes because it's a corrective to some of the kind of distortions, I would say, of the culture that we live in. Distortions from, like Francis Weller is saying, they're from nature, yeah? Like nothing in nature, well, people say whatever, nothing in nature except cancer grows indefinitely. And our culture, we have an economic system that's premised on growing indefinitely. So it's a distorted system. And within that system, the wellness culture and therapeutic culture also gets distorted by the same desire to always grow, to always overcome, to always... Yep.
It makes me think of my work as a therapist and that I do find that I am I get caught up in progress. Are they noticing change? Are they feeling better? Are they getting value out of this? And I'm measuring value based on progress, based on the ascent.
Yep.
And I really love that quote. It really demonstrates and explains that that's just not nature. That's not the natural flow of things, that we would be always improving and, getting better.
Yep.
I know your view of therapy is, and you can probably phrase it a lot better than me, but this idea that we have of needing to be fixed, that I'll feel better when I fix my trauma. I'll feel better when I can change who I am. Can you say a bit about how you see that?
Yeah. I'm not trying to hedge. I'm not trying to sit on the fence here the whole time, but I want to say that nothing's like 100%. Things are complex, and we need to be navigating different sides of things, And so, of course, there's a sense in which we want our clients to be making progress, and we want to check in with our clients around what, how are things going? Okay, we've done 20 sessions. Like, is this making a difference in your life? And if it's not, and if we talk about that, and what's happening there or what's going on? So it's in no way am I trying to say, okay, just like completely throw out the idea of like progress, right? The question is, what's the most effective way to make progress? That's what I'm interested in. What's the most effective way to make progress?
What is the most effective way to make progress?
Again, I don't think there's any one answer to that. It will depend on a bunch of different things. Often, like very often, I think, it's staying and deepening into what is. That's the most effective way to make progress. That's what the paradoxical theory of change is saying. We don't change by trying to change ourselves, because then we're just dividing against ourselves, right? And that creates a kind of tension in our system, in our bodies, in our psyches. That creates a tension that is not conducive to change. When we come into and feel into, let's say there is some division, there is some dividing against ourselves. When we come into that, really feel into that, how am I divided? What are the different things that are at play here? That creates a kind of ground for change. Yeah. Can I read another quote at this point? So this is this is from Arnold Beiser, who wrote the article, who defined this idea. Maybe I'll talk a bit about him after this as well, who defined this idea of the paradoxical theory of change as a thing that happens in Gestalt therapy. He wrote this in 1970. He was using male pronouns. I think I'll read 2 paragraphs for the first one. I'll just use he, and then I'll use she for the second. Otherwise it gets confusing. This is how he put it, how he defined the paradoxical theory of change. Change occurs when one becomes what he is, not when he tries to become what he's not. And he goes on to say, change does not take place through a coercive attempt by the individual or by another person to change him. But it does take place if one takes the time and effort to be what he is, to be fully invested in his current positions. And I like this phrase, I want to repeat the phrase, by rejecting the role of change agent, we make meaningful and orderly change possible. So by rejecting the role of change agent, he's talking about therapists. We reject this role of change agent. We make meaningful and orderly change possible. Next a little bit, the Gestalt therapist rejects the role of changer, for her strategy is to encourage, even insist, that the patient be where and what she is. She believes change does not take place by trying, coercion or persuasion, or by insight, interpretation or any other such means. Rather, change can occur when the patient abandons, at least for the moment, what she would like to become and attempts to be what she is. The premise is that one must stand in one place in order to have firm footing to move, and that it's difficult or impossible to move without that footing. There's bits in that. So we were talking about, okay, well, what's the most effective, what makes for the most effective change? And I really like that bit there, one must stand in place in order to have a firm footing to move, right? How do we want something to change in our lives, and that's fine. We're suffering from something. There's something we want to get rid of or something. How do we get firm footing in order to make a change, in order to make something possible? Is it to pull against ourselves, to pull in different directions? I don't think it is. I mean, I think sometimes that something more willful or really going for change can be effective, but I often think, at least at a deep level, some sense we need to have some capacity, and we need to encourage our clients to have some capacity drop into what is the predicament? What are we sitting with here? Yeah, as a starting point at least. That's what 95% of the people who come into our therapy room, that's what they're coming in with. I think maybe if people have done a lot of work or a lot of therapy, they might come in with a different flavour. They might come in, but I feel like normally people come in the door and they first meet us. We meet them as therapists, and in some way they're saying to us in one way or another, I'm not okay. I need to fix myself or change myself, and I need your help to do that. Yeah, that's what they're saying. Why would they come to therapy otherwise? They want to fix something. They want to change something. They want to get rid of something. They want to develop something. If I could just get rid of this, if I could get rid of this thing that I've got, this anxiety or this way I am in relationships, and then I'd be okay. Yeah, they come in. And often maybe we can think about like an expression of shame. Often people, that's one way to look at people come in the room, and in some way they're saying like at a deep level, I'm not okay. They're in shame. I'm not okay. And I want your help to fix myself. And I feel like if we think, let's take that shame lens and think about that. If we say to them, they're obviously not many people are coming in the room and saying that directly, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like sort of metaphorical. Yeah, that's the message that's being conveyed. If we convey the message back to them that we agree with them, that yes, you do have a problem that needs fixing. In some way we're colluding with their shame. They're coming into the room, they're in shame, sense that there's something wrong with them, there's something broken with them that needs fixing. We agree with them, and then both of us are working, in a sense, from that place of shame. And so I think that's the risk if we rush into agreeing with people how they're defining the problem. If we rush in, we're kind of colluding with the shame, yeah, or we're getting on board with a kind of self-improvement project that they're kind of trying to bring into our work. And that's why I love that. That's why I repeated the thing, resisting the role of the change agent. I think it's so interesting and so important. It goes against, I'm aware, it kind of goes against there are important ideas. I'm not trying to reject these ideas, like ideas about being client-led. It goes against that. In some way, you are deeply disagreeing with the client's idea about what the goal of therapy is or what's important in therapy. Again, I don't want to say this 100%. It's not always totally like this, but at a deep level, we can reject their definition of the problem. They say, I'm the problem and I need to be fixed, and we can reject that. And we don't have to say, oh, that's not the case. It doesn't have to be like, I'm rejecting here. We can reject it deep down, and in the way that we treat them, and in the way that we don't treat them as a problem, and in the way that we say to them in all that we do, in all our interventions, I want to stay with all of you here. I get that you want to run. I get that you want to fix that part. You want to get rid of that thing, or you want to, there's some problem that you're trying to move away from in yourself, and I want to stay with you in that problem. Can we stay together in that and in the feeling that you want to pull away from it? Can we be in all of that together? So it's not like a harsh rejection, right? But it's hopefully it's like a loving rejection of what they're bringing. But still, it's something worth thinking about, that it's not. I haven't fully sort of arrived at how I feel about this totally, but it's not like a client sort of centered approach in that sense of being totally led by what the client wants.
That the therapist ideally would hold more, include more than maybe the client is able to.
A bigger frame.
Yeah. When the therapist can do that, hopefully it's an invitation for the client to also be able to hold more of themselves in the work, in their lives.
That's maybe a nicer way of putting it. Yeah. So you could put it like, okay, it's not like client-centered, but a nice way of putting it is people come in with a kind of a small frame, and they feel like there's some part of themselves that can't be included in that frame. And can we hold a kind of bigger frame for them and say it can all be included? And you can't like rush that or force people into that. I mean, that's going to take a lot of time. That's not easy work. But I think that can be the kind of orientation, or that can be the kind of underlying energy that we bring to the work.
It's more of a yes and from the therapist. Oh, I see this part of you that you want to banish or get rid of or gain. Okay. And what else is there?
Yeah.
What else is available?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. That makes me think of another point that is something that I kind of grapple with around this is, I think I used to be, so many people come in, I'm not sure what it's like for you, but people come in and they're like, they want strategies. right? Strategies. That word is a real popular word. And strategies feels, at least the way at a first pass to that term, it feels very much like it's in that agenda of kind of like improving and fixing what are my strategies, what are my hacks, and so on. And I used to be quite like, I even said to some people a few times, I don't think it was I'm not thinking this was a good thing to, I said, I don't do strategies. I'm not a strategy kind of therapist. If you want strategies, like, I don't know if I'm the right therapist kind of thing, I'd say I don't do strategies. I don't think that's true. I think I do strategies in a sense. I want them to be like bottom up and developed from the work that we're doing. I'd have a problem with okay, these are the strategies for some particular condition. For anxiety, these are the things I use or something. I feel like you can develop like things together with people, things to do. That's fine. But the point of the yes and, it's like, what do we do with that energy so people come in, right, into the room and they have a strong energy of like, I want to do, they have that willful energy that you're talking about. I got this willful energy and I want to do strategies, right? Do we say, which I think I was guilty of a bit, like, no, that's not what I do. I do something over here which is more like just being with. Okay, maybe you're probably going to lose the person, like if you come on too strong with that. Do we say that? Or do we just, it's like kind of like I think all of this has a kind of Taoist flavor, or has a kind of martial art, like an Aikido thing. Do we just be like, cool, okay, your energy is coming in this direction. You want to do your strategies. Let's do that, right? Let's do that. And let's go back to the holding of the bigger frame as well. Cool, we're trying out the strategies. Get interested in the strategies. What strategies do you use already? And someone's coming in with anxiety, right? What strategies do you use? Okay, I've been, trying breathing, and sort of, telling myself that it's not as bad as, and how does that work? How does that work? Okay, cool. Do we play around with, okay, you got that breathing? Yeah, and I might know this other breathing technique or whatever. Just going with their energy. Yeah, they've got an energy. I want strategies. I want to get rid of this. We might see that they have like almost no capacity to stay with their experience of anxiety. We can kind of know that itself fuels anxiety. So if we're feeling anxiety and we want to escape from anxiety, if I'm feeling like, well, let's go to something really present. If I'm feeling like, hey, I'm not used to having cameras on me, right? And I haven't done that many podcasts and I feel some anxiety. Yeah, I can feel some anxiety in my chest. My chest feels a bit tight. And I could feel it I could feel as if my voice could be a bit shaky from that anxiety. If I try to cover that up or say that that's not okay, it's not okay for me to feel anxious in this situation, what are people going to think? Okay, this is going to go on a website and people might see this and potential clients might see this or something. What kind of therapist is feeling, if I go into this thing, like this is not okay for me to stay with, this is not okay for me to be anxious at this time and I'm trying to move away from it, that's like coming up to a little fire with a kind of watering can, but the watering can's full of petrol. It's like whatever kind of tightness I'm feeling, if I add to that, the feeling like I can't let anyone see this tightness, I can't let anyone see that I'm feeling anxious, that is like, that's the loop. It's
like loop. Anxiety about the anxiety.
Exactly. And I think so often, and using anxiety as an example, so often there's that kind of looping recursive quality in anxiety, especially maybe social anxiety, but maybe all types of anxiety. There's that recursive quality. We're feeling something like, I don't want that to be seen. I can't see it. If they saw this, how terrible would that be? How terrible would that be? We're looking at people's strategies, right? And we're saying, what strategies are you already using? Probably, if they're probably using strategies that are strategies that try to help them avoid what they're feeling. So let's stay with the example of anxiety, social anxiety. I'm feeling anxiety, and the strategies that I've been using so far are ones that help me or an attempt for me to move away from that anxiety. I don't want people to see that I'm feeling anxious. That's how I don't want to be like that. I'm trying to be a good therapist here. I don't want people to see that. So the strategies that I've been using my breathing techniques, and I've been using my grounding, I've been doing whatever. All of them are strategies to move away from something, to move away from the anxiety. And so we can take the strategy talk It's like the Aikido move. Like they're coming out, yeah, cool. Let's do the strategies. Okay, you tried these strategies. Okay, let's try them. And then maybe a little bit down the line, a couple of sessions in, a few sessions in, we throw in some other strategies, which are strategies about staying with. Yeah, and we still use the strategy language, right? Cool. Let's go with that. But now we're working in this kind of paradoxical theory of change way. What about we try this strategy? Let's try this experiment, this interesting experiment where the next time that something comes up or whatever, we create a space, we create a 1 minute space and we just completely see if we can just completely let it be there without trying to get rid of it. See what that's like. Treat it like a strategy, treat it like a little game or a little experiment. We're teaching them about we've taken their energy for strategies and we're starting to put it in a broader frame that's starting to include these things more in the register of the paradoxical theory of change, and that's going to work better. It works better.
Yeah.
And so, like, if the people can stay in it and if they can start to get a feel for that, you'll start gravitating towards those strategies. What was it really like? It was actually really different when I was sort of feeling like an anxiety attack was coming on the other night, and instead of, totally freaking out and getting tense and I can't let anyone. So I said to my partner or whatever, I said, okay, I'm feeling really anxious. I need to just your help with this. I need to help to stay in it a little bit. And it's just going to be, it just opens up new possibilities for people. Yeah. So I think all of that was a long answer, but we'll think about the yes and. It is yes and. People come in with a will to change. Go with it and broaden it out for them into some of these kind of non-change, non-doing interventions.
Yeah, so it changes from a strategy being, how do I move away from this and be different? Yep. How do I not experience this and definitely not let anyone see that I'm experiencing this, to how do I be with this?
Yes.
And by being with it, finding some ease. Can you say a little bit about what actually happens when we be with it? Do you have like a way of explaining what that being with does versus the avoidance? Why it works, essentially?
Yeah. Can we're using me as an example? Can I just do it? Like, I'll try it. Okay.
Absolutely.
So just being with. Okay. I've been talking a lot. And in that, I haven't really had much of a chance to just kind of really take in a way that I'm starting to do now. I'm kind of being with. So I'm being with. I still feel anxiety. It doesn't feel like super strong. It doesn't feel so strong that I'm not able to kind of be present or something. But I feel it. Feel it in my chest. I feel it like an energy. There's like an energy in my upper body. And I feel like my breathing's quite my breathing is quite shallow or something. I feel like, and as I tune into that, I suddenly felt like, I wanted to breathe into my belly. Yeah. So just tuning into my breathing, sort of being with the anxiety of doing a podcast and being in front of cameras, just changed the way I was breathing. And I wasn't even trying to do that. It wasn't a breathing technique. It was just kind of being with it. I feel just doing this and just being able to kind of, I guess in Gestalt terms, is like kind of make contact with a kind of anxiety or anxiety/excited sort of energy that I'm feeling. I feel it shifting and I feel myself actually kind of relaxing in my chair. I feel actually I can make more, like I'm taking you in more than I was. I feel myself slowing down. I mean, I can talk about other examples, but I mean, it's just that's a sort of a bit of a live example. There's nothing particularly fancy there, but it's just, okay, I stay with. I completely understand why I might not have been doing much tuning into my anxiety, because here we are doing a podcast, I'm talking about things I'm interested in, but when I stay with it, something starts to shift. It feels like, okay, actually, there's an energy, kind of a bit of a dropping of energy, and there's Yeah. So I settle more. I feel more settled. I feel a bit more grounded and settled into our conversation. And I didn't have to do anything. There was no effort to move my anxiety. I was just like, okay, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even in sitting across from you and you describing you being with your anxiety, I kind of mirrored that in myself. As you dropped into your body, I felt myself drop into my body.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's interesting that kind of stress response of like our vision narrows, can't take as much in, we're faster in anxiety, but going towards it, our body and nervous system know what to do, right?
Yep.
When you create that space.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I do that. And then we're here in a conversation. There's like a dyad where you're in relationship with each other. And so something happens for you in that too. And then some new possibilities then, I imagine. We never know because we don't have the kind of counterfactual of where the conversation would have gone without doing that. But some new possibilities from a more kind of relaxed place are available to us in this conversation. So that's going back to that idea of like the firmer ground under the feet. That's a really nice metaphor. It's like take a minute and just to be with what is. Okay, I'm feeling pretty excited. I'm feeling a bit anxious about being in a conversation in this way. Take a minute to be in it, and there's a sort of a dropping in and a bit of a relaxing, and there's a bit of a dropping in and a relaxing on that side. And it's like there's a firmer ground under our conversation then.
Which I feel and imagine can only broaden where it will now go. And there's like the opportunity for creativity that's not there.
Yep.
Or we have less access to in a
Yep.
state of stress.
Yep. I mean, it can work in a lot of different ways. So, okay, there's a little way. There's a little way. And it didn't feel like, I don't know, that wasn't like a big issue. It didn't feel like my anxiety was a big issue. But there you go. It was sort of something to just, that's a bit live. How it works with people, it will often look like, it often has a kind of parts work flavor to it as well. I think it'll often look like two sides to something. It very often has a flavor of people being divided. Even just that thing, like let's just stick with this, not all about anxiety, but whatever, we're rolling with the anxiety. There's a division there. There's like a splitting against the self, right? It's like I'm experiencing something. I'm experiencing this set of feelings that I'm labeling as anxiety, and I'm doing all that I can to get rid of that or for that not to happen. So there's this splitting there's this kind of splitting, this kind of dividing against the self. And so often it looks like, again, it's that broader frame of just like, can we hold both of those parts here? Can we hold both things here? So that's what it looks like. And you might go into each of them. In turn, you can do like parts work, you do your chair work, or you do parts work, or whatever. I think IFS, really has, and that parts work, it has a lot of resonance with paradoxical theory of change from the bits from what I know about it, in that it's trying to give all the different parts a kind of seat at the table of the situation, yeah? So it's trying to bring, that's like that broader frame bit. It's trying to bring them into, give every part a seat at the table. It's another example. I'm just thinking of some examples kind of recently from work or teaching work that I've been doing. Yep.
While you're thinking of that, when I think of those different parts, say a really anxious part and then the part that's like, oh my God, I can't be anxious or I can't let anyone see it or I need to be different. That attempts to cover the anxiety and move away from it. But the anxiety has its own agenda. It wants to be heard. It wants to alert to some kind of threat or danger. So it amplifies. And then the part that wants to avoid the anxiety needs to amplify. And then the anxiety needs to amplify.
Well, that's like the petrol on the fire, right?
Yeah, that it becomes, and it takes a lot of energy.
Yes.
And that splitting that you're talking about, it's not solid ground to move forward from.
No, it's not solid ground to move forward from. It's not, generally not the right conditions for change. Change wants to, and this is a thing, a sort of a tenet of Gestalt therapy as well, is that our organisms, our bodies, human beings have a natural movement towards wholeness, towards healing. And if we just sort of get out of the way, in a sense, then that will happen. And that happens naturally. We can't always decide. It might not always look what we change, might not look like what we want it to look like. But if we can get out of the way, then our system, our body, our organism will move towards greater wholeness, greater integrity, it will go through a process of healing. And that, what you're talking about, that kind of like, I can't be this way, I'm divided, that's getting in the way. Yeah, that's not getting out of the way. That's getting in the way. And so there's something about being over, I keep going to my left, I don't know why, it ended up in our conversation, the paradoxical theory of change is over here to the left. Over here, we go to that paradoxical theory of change. It's like getting out of the way and trusting that our system, that our bodies, that the human kind of organism has self-healing capacities. It's just like letting them happen. We don't need to do anything. All that we need to do as therapists is actually help people get out of the way. And we get out of the way too. We get out of the way and let nature and let the Tao and let the human body move. We let it heal. We let the situation move itself.
It's very counter to our culture. Oh, you don't just, if something's wrong or not going the way you want, you don't just allow it. You must take action. You must change it. You must make it different.
Yep. I feel it's strongly countercultural. I feel like it's radically countercultural to really go into this. I feel like there's sort of varieties of this. And look, I want to be careful not to sound too critical of particular things here, because I think lots of things, like all people do all kinds of things that are good and great, and it's just where people are at. And different things will be good at different times. So, but you look at things like a kind of like mindfulness as a thing in the last 20 years, right? The mindfulness movement, and like mindfulness as this big thing, and John Kabat-Zinn and the whole thing, the whole mindfulness thing. It's become a big thing, a mindfulness industry. And it has elements of this. It has elements of the staying with and the just accepting. And it has very strong elements as well on the other side of the improving, of the kind of getting better. Why are we doing mindfulness? Because studies show, right? Studies show that it does X, X, and X. It makes you better at this and better at that and so on. Yeah? So often I think people, if you just come into, say, these types of practices, say awareness, mindfulness type practices through that kind of the mindfulness industrial complex or whatever, mindfulness. If you come into it through that, you're really likely to get exposed to these bits of it that it's like we're doing this to improve. Yeah? So I think the radical bit of it, the really radical bit is that it's kind of inviting us to let go of that agenda. I guess what I'm trying to say is even things that look like they're doing this often aren't doing it that deeply, or there's still a strong kind of agenda of directing the growth in a particular way.
Do you think that happens when it becomes capitalistic?
Yeah.
Because you need to do the studies and prove it so that people will invest in it, so
Totally.
you can sell it.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. And look, it's not saying, again, this is why I wanted to not be too critical. Maybe I'm kind of being critical of a kind of, yes, big patterns we can see in our culture and in capitalist culture and how that co-ops different things. I'm not trying to be critical of anyone who's practicing mindfulness or any therapist who's working with that, because there's always still going to be really good things in doing that, where you are dropping in, you are helping people drop into the feelings and so on. So I don't want to be critical. Mindfulness is great. It's a great thing. It's when it gets, caught up in the capitalist kind of agenda that, we start to see things where it's losing that kind of radical edge. And I love being over on this radical side. And can I talk a little radical stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, he's my supervisor now, but I've got a couple of Zen teachers, and he's my Zen teacher's teacher. He's a guy called Barry Majid. He's a psychoanalyst and he's a Zen master, Zen teacher. He lives in New York. And he has these really nice terms. I might read another quote. I might open up my computer and read a quote. He has this nice way of putting it that really highlights how I think Zen gets more radical around this than Gestalt therapy does. It almost in some sense gets rid of the change bit. I haven't put it like this before. I'm just saying this for the first time as I say it, but it almost makes it just like a paradoxical theory of just like ... It's like, because we're still holding, in Gestalt therapy, we're still holding this idea of change, right? I think it's good to change that. People are coming and paying. It's good to hold that. People are coming and they're paying their money, and like we want them to be improving in their lives. And then on the other hand, we've got these Zen teachings that are just like so extraordinarily radical and counterintuitive that it's just like you can't get them. It's just like you can get them, but they're so, you can hear them, but it's so counter. So there was this, one of the most famous sort of Zen teachers. There's sort of couple of big lineages, or a few big lineages, but two main ones in Zen. And one of the lineages, the Soto lineage, was founded by this guy Dogen, who was in China in like the 12th century, very influential teacher. And he really highlighted this element of like not gaining. There's no gain. So this taking the opposite of this kind of like moving somewhere approach. And he said, previously Buddhism had a gaining type approach to it. It's like, okay, we might be working over many lifetimes, and eventually we're going to come up to this high and we're going to become a Buddha or an enlightened being or something. And then with Mahayana Buddhism and then Zen, and then particularly Dogen really taking it to a different levels, there was this idea emerged that there's nothing that needs to be done. In a way, we're already there. Like, so samsara, with this thing we're thinking we need to escape, is the same as nirvana. They're not different. This is nirvana. We've already arrived. Yeah. So this like super radical kind of teaching. And Dogen would talk about, he said that Zazen, so that's like practicing meditation, that's sitting in meditation, Zazen is not a technique. And so the strategy things comes into my mind then. So he says Zazen is not a technique. And Barry Majid, the Zen teacher that I now see for supervision, he writes about this and just like the implications of this. What's it like to really treat sitting meditation as not a technique? This is not something that's going to get me anywhere. It's not going to move me anywhere. It's not going to improve me in any way. And Barry Majid talks about it as Zazen. He talks about Zen and psychoanalysis or psychotherapy. They're useless, right? And they might be the only things we do in our lives that are useless. They're not about a means to an end. Everything we do, so many things we do about means to ends. I'm doing this because I'm sitting in my mindfulness meditation because I want to get over here. And there's this invitation, this radical invitation into something that is not means to ends. Can we sit? And sitting for Dogen was not about getting anywhere. Sitting in Zazen was not about getting anywhere. It was sitting to express our Buddha nature. It was an expression that we've already arrived, that we're already there. It was a beautiful and complete expression that we're already Buddhas, that we've already arrived.
It's very radical and quite amazing. And I've had those experiences of meditation, and I've had experiences where I'm striving and, I better do my meditation because if I don't, or because I want to be something. But I really love that idea of sitting in meditation just to express the true nature of who I already am,
Exactly.
what I actually am in my essence.
I like how you put it. So can I read another quote?
Yeah.
All right. This is from Barry Majid. Oh, there's a couple here. This is from a book called Ending the Pursuit of Happiness, a Zen guide or something like that. So Ending the Pursuit of Happiness. So it's kind of perfect for what we're talking about. So we're not in the Zendo. That's like the meditation hall. We're not in the Zendo or on the couch, the psychotherapy couch, to perfect ourselves, to become something new or radically different. We're there simply to be who we already are. We practice leaving ourselves alone and just being this moment. Fully being in the moment entails psychologically re-owning those parts of ourselves that we've split off or dissociated from, and spiritually reconnecting with the whole of life. Yeah, so you can see the influence of these kind of teachings on how I'm talking about the paradoxical theory of change as well, right? I think that's this meeting point I was trying to talk about. They're so close. Here's another quote from the same book. In an age devoted to self-help and self-improvement, the uselessness of meditation or analysis is very difficult to grasp. Zazen is not a technique. It is not a means to an end. It's not a way to become calmer, more confident, or even enlightened. Indeed, our whole practice can be said to be about putting an end to self-improvement, an end to our usual compulsive pursuit of happiness, or its Zen equivalent, the pursuit of enlightenment. Not that we can't be happy or enlightened, it's just that we'll get there by a very different route than we once imagined, and it may not look anything like what we expected when we started out. So there's a lot in that, and I just love that bit, Zazen is not a technique. This is not a thing that we're doing. This is not a strategy. It's not a means to an end. And what the paradoxical theory of change is saying, it's like, and when we do this, and what I think is being said in Zen, why do people do this for 30 years, 40 years? Why do they do this? Because by doing this, by adopting this, by feeling into this way of finding something that's not about a means to an end, it does change us. It changes us in really big ways, and ways that are probably much deeper and much more profound and much more difficult, and that take much longer than just like learning a few strategies.
In terms of like internal family systems therapy, it makes me think of, and this is kind of a question, like, is it that to truly sit in meditation, in IFS terms, that would be sitting in self-energy and letting the parts of us that have ideas about how we should be and agendas and shame, allowing all of that to drop away and just being in self-energy, in our essence. And that if we are sitting in meditation in a striving way or in order to change, that is coming from a part of our mind that wants us to be different, wants us to improve, not to just embody the essence of the universe, essentially.
Yeah. There's just one thing I'll pick up on what you're saying, though, that, you're sitting, the self, they call it what in IFS like the true self or the self-energy. Self-energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the self-energy sounds exactly like, where you want to be. And you said allowing other parts, say the parts that want to change or something, to drop away. How do we allow them to drop away? That's the question. That's important. That's what we're talking about here today. Do we do something to make them drop away? Or do we invite them and let them be there, let them be as they are, give them a voice.
It's a very important distinction.
It's a very important distinction. And I think that's what they're doing in IFS, right? They're giving, you will go in and you start to understand, or what is this voice that constantly wants to improve? What's it been trying to do, right? What's it trying to do? What's its role in this whole family of selves, right? So that distinction, I think that's what we're talking about today, it rests on that bit, that point. It's like, we want to be in our self-energy. When we're sitting in meditation, it's great. We want to be centered and we want to be centered in ourselves. But how do we get there?
The inclusion of all. And compassionate acceptance of all. Yep. When I think about myself in my life, all the distress I feel is ways in which I think I should be different, which is informed by our culture largely. That's all of my distress, the rejection of parts of myself and the not allowing parts of myself to be as they are in me.
Yep. I think you're not alone in feeling that. I could say something really similar. Yeah, and I think it's, ultimately we're talking here when we talk about the paradoxical theory of change, about like an orientation to what are we doing in therapy? And like, what's the problem we're trying to fix? If there's a problem, or what's the issue, maybe not trying to fix, maybe like, what's the issue we're dealing with? And like what you were saying just then is like, well, maybe the underlying issue is something about what we're talking about today. For the fact that I'm trying to get, maybe that's the underlying issue. Very few clients are going to come and sit on the chair, come into the room and see that as the underlying issue initially. Yeah. I think. So that's why there might be a kind of discrepancy, or us holding a kind of bigger frame, if we really start being guided by this kind of way of thinking about doing therapy.
We're so encouraged to locate our problems within ourselves, and I think therapy can sometimes perpetuate that when we're these expressions of nature and the universe,
Yep.
trying to live and thrive under systems that are not aligned with nature.
Yep. It's stuff you're saying, and you're talking about IFS, and I want to preface all of this by saying, look, I don't know heaps about it. I've read some stuff about IFS. I haven't done training or anything like that. But it's a good example of when we're talking about the will before, or we're talking about the, like doing something, right? So I want to make a distinction here between like a kind of like non-doing. So in Zen, they'll talk about like non-doing, which is not the same as like doing nothing, right? So it's something, I want to make a distinction between those two things. We can be really deeply oriented around non-doing in our practice, as in like, I'm not going to change this person. I'm not going to change. I don't want to change this person. This person wants to change. I'm going to sit here and be with them. That doesn't mean that we do nothing, right? We're still like taught why they come. If we do nothing, it's going to create an awkward situation, in the therapy room. We're still doing stuff. And so I think about the talking about the IFS. And so you might go, you want to be in this self state, and there's this part, right, that wants to like do. I want to fix. There's this fixing part or something, or the kind of the fixer or something. Like, you can go and do stuff, use a willful directive energy and use, say, techniques in Gestalt therapy or IFS or whatever else to like work with that part. Cool. Like, do that. Explore that part. Find out, just like what they've really got really nuanced around this in IFS. Like, find out what the part, how old the part is, and what it's like to speak from this part, etc., right? So it's like you're doing stuff. You're still like doing interventions, and you're talking, and you're whatever. You're working with things, and you can hold a broad frame of non-doing. Yeah, a broad frame of ultimately, I don't want to move this person anywhere. Like I want this person I want all of this person, all that they are, all that they're brought into the room, to be able to sit with that. And that, I guess, when I'm saying non-doing, it's something like that. Another way that I've started to think about it, and I've tried to be teaching to my students, and it seems to work. Like it's like you can think about an axis, like there's like a horizontal axis, right? Of a client comes, and we can move them along a horizontal axis. So they come with some issue. I feel upset about the thing. I feel upset about, what my partner said or whatever. We can like problem solve with them or move them on. Let's try and break through the upset. Let's try and do this, whatever. There's all kinds of things that we can do that can move them from where they are, right? So they're coming in and saying, I'm upset, and I haven't been able to feel it. Just go into the upset or something. We could say, okay, let's go into the upset. Let's bring it out or something. We're moving them horizontally, right? We're moving them from where they started. And so what I want to say, that's a kind of doing. A non-doing, as I would say it, is having the idea of, I don't want to move them anywhere. I want to keep them exactly where they are. If they start to move by themselves, fine. Like we kind of go with them. We don't try to hold them where they are, and hopefully people do move. Like hopefully they do move in that horizontal way, but we're not doing that. We're not moving them horizontally anywhere. But what we are doing is moving them vertically. Yeah. And I want to say we move them kind of like on a vertical axis, we move them down. We're moving them down into deeper contact with where they are. Yeah. So somebody comes in and says, I'm angry at my partner and I haven't been able to express it. You're angry with your partner. That's one side. Haven't been able to express it. That's the other side. Haven't been able to say you got anger. And your anger is blocked in somewhere. It's not getting expression. Don't need to move them anywhere. Keep them exactly there. Yeah? No horizontal movement. Just downward movement. Oh, wow. What's that like? To have the anger, and it's also, you can't express it. Yeah, just be with that. I'm just being with that. I'm wondering, what's that like for you? So we're doing something. I'm using words. I'm sort of encouraging them. I might encourage them to feel into different bits of it or whatever. But it's not moving them anywhere horizontally. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it makes me think of certain interventions that therapists can use that do sometimes quite quickly move people horizontally. And I'm thinking of the more cognitive interventions where someone can be thinking about something in a particular way and a therapist can kind of help move them from that thinking to a place that feels maybe a bit more easeful.
Yep.
But what you're describing, as you describe it, I feel my body relaxing in a way that feels like what you described before of the human body, human beings. We know how to heal in the right conditions. And when you're describing that, staying there and moving down into it, it feels really deep and supportive and counterintuitive, which is that paradoxical part that, of not being different, not changing anything, and therefore the conditions being created for change to happen rather than the therapist doing it.
Yep. Just one point on that picking up on something you said, again, it's back to that like not wanting anything to be 100% here or not. It's not like everything, like there's nothing wrong. So you're talking about some cognitive approaches or something that do quickly move people horizontally. Fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And actually that can be really cool to experiment around. What's it like if we go this way? We were talking before about someone comes in and they want strategies, right? Let's like try out different strategies. Okay, cool. Let's try this cognitive strategy. Let's try this strategy that moves you over that way and see what that feels like and see what that's like. Let's do that in the broader frame, right? So it's like, okay, we're experimenting around. We're trying different things. We see how that feels. We see how it feels over this way. If that's all we do, if that's the only frame we have, moving people horizontally, I would have a lot of things to say about that. I think that's a big problem. And I think there's types of therapy that that's their only frame. I don't think that's bad. I don't think it's bad to move horizontally. I just think I would suggest, or in my practice, I want the deeper frame so that if I am doing horizontal movements, cool, I'm doing that. But I know that that's not the main game of what I'm doing. I can experiment around with all kinds of things. It could look like all kinds of things at the surface. But the main game is sitting underneath, and it's not about moving people horizontally. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to move into our short segment of therapy. And in this part of the episode, our guest, Rhys, becomes the therapist and I become the client. And this is not role-playing. It's a real segment of work, though in different conditions than what therapy would normally be conducted. There's cameras,
really?
there's
I
recordings.
didn't know, different conditions. I didn't see that. Yeah.
And it's also quite different because we're both therapists, which probably has strengths and limitations to it. It's quite different because I am a therapist who has done lots of therapy, so this isn't kind of an example of what maybe a first therapy session would look like with you, but some insight into your work and how you might work with this random presentation that I'm going to bring.
Okay. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
Okay. So, am I the therapist now?
You're the therapist.
Okay, all right. I'm hearing what you're saying about this feeling really different and this being an interesting and weird, experiment in doing therapy. So I want to encourage us just to feel into that difference, just to feel into what that feels like. And maybe that means, okay, feel into what it's like just now. What it's like just to be doing this, to be starting this segment. What does that feel like? What does that feel like for you? And I'm saying that, but maybe you want to initially, before you speak, maybe you want to just hang out in the feelings of it. I'm aware that I'm doing a transition from a guy speaking about something he's interested in therapy to being a kind of therapeutic little segment that we're doing here. I think you're doing a bigger transition. Yeah? You're doing a transition from podcast host, someone who's kind of ultimately holding this space into kind of client, pseudo-client type role. Yeah.
It actually feels really nice to have that named, and though I've kind of named it before in other episodes in this bit, it has, I feel like naming it, and maybe particularly you naming it, has changed the dynamic a bit.
Tell me about, how do you feel the change of the dynamic?
I feel like you very gently kind of went and took something, I don't know what it was, where I relaxed and went, I'm the client.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what the right word is, like the leadership,
Okay.
the
Well, stay with the feeling of it then, and don't worry for a minute about words. Just stay with the feeling of it. There was something of a relaxation.
Yeah. That I feel like I let go of my role.
Yeah.
And I'm just me.
Okay. Yep. That happened quickly. Sorry, I interrupted you. You go.
Well, it just makes me think of, made my mind quickly go to, what was I doing in the other podcast episodes? Did I retain my host role even in the client position?
Yeah.
And I suspect I did to some degree.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not possible to completely relinquish it.
I doubt it is, and I would hope that I would expect that some part of you is always going to be in the podcast host mode in what we're doing. Yeah. Can you feel into that? Can you just get a sense of, well, how is that active in you? And it might be active in your body, it might be active in words, in the way that you're thinking, in the way that your attention's been directed. Just get a sense of how that's there, not needing to change it, but just a sense of that.
I just get a sense of, like, inside my right shoulder, there's the me that has the microphone. That it's happy to sit back.
Yeah.
But it's just going to oversee.
Inside your right shoulder.
Yeah, it's very, very clear
Very
image
clear.
for me.
So it's an image. So there's like a feeling and an image. What's the image?
The image is me with a microphone a bit like this, but I mostly see the microphone. And the feeling is just, I feel like my right shoulder's a little bit more elevated, a little bit more tense, a bit on.
A bit on.
And my left shoulder feels relaxed.
I feel relaxed. Yeah, I like that. I like what you did. Okay. Can you I want to encourage you then just to stay with that. You got a beautiful image. If it helps to close your eyes to stay with it or not. You've got this beautiful image that's sort of like the image that we're seeing, right? There's a microphone, but it sounds like there's differences. So just stay with the image and stay with the feeling. There's a feeling, and it's like an on. It's like a switched on. And you did a sort of like a raising up, like a tensing. Just stay with that. See what it's like to stay with that.
I feel like it's like, come on, do that.
The shoulder's saying that? It's saying, come on.
It's saying, no, don't stay with me. Do the therapy bit. I mean, this obviously is the therapy bit, but it's it is wanting to direct. Actually.
It's wanting to direct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is there like in that? So it's like, come on, and you're clicking your fingers. Is there an impulse? Like, is there a physical impulse? So you got the feeling in there. Is there a physical? Would it click or would it move or what? Is there an impulse towards movement in that directing right shoulder?
Yeah, I think it sort of clicks and urges me forward. Like, no, go to the vulnerable thing.
Okay.
Go to the,
So just feel what that's like as you're moving in a way there. You're doing a thing. You're moving your body. Just see what that's like to let that part of you, that directing, podcast hosting part of Laura, just kind of have a bit of play. Yeah, I like what you're doing, moving around.
Yeah, it's having a good time. Actually, I would say. Yeah.
It's having a good time.
It's almost enjoying now rather than it was sort of like, no, move along, do what you were like supposed to do in this segment. Bring what you thought you were going to bring.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what it was saying. And now it's happy to be in the spotlight.
It's happy to be in the spotlight, that part.
It's like, oh, me? Oh, okay. Oh, well, look at me? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so, you know, you have such a clear sort of figure that isn't it? That right shoulder and that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels like we've been talking about parts. It feels like a distinct part. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite distinct. And it's, at least in the way I'm expressing it and interacting with it since I've been doing these podcasts, it's quite new. You know, this is a whole new realm for me.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's like surprising how much I enjoy doing this.
So stepping into doing the podcast, and that's quite new for you. You know, you're saying I think this is your fifth one or something. That's bringing up this part in a way that feels like something new, something novel's happening. Yeah, and you're enjoying it now. You're feeling enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting and
Yeah.
it feels enriching and interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like I'm okay at it.
Mm.
Yeah, which is not a nice, feeling of good enough competence at something I'm new at.
Yeah.
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 So maybe there's a bit of like pride
Nice.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to see. I want to encourage you just to get a sense of, okay, there's that shoulder energy. There's that really lovely shoulder energy. That's a nice thing to feel into. Just see what's happening in the rest of your body. Just see if you can get a sense. Let your attention kind of track around in the rest of your body, and maybe the shoulder energy spread into other parts. You mentioned your other shoulder before. See how that's feeling. See what else is figural for you.
Yeah, there's a bit of it's almost like this part of me is quite switched on, alive, at attention, working. And then it almost feels like a drag down to this side of like,
Okay.
and it's almost like all the rest of me is kind of just hanging off this actually.
Okay. So I see you doing that, right? I see you leaning. I'm kind of leaning too. Did you get a feel for it? I see you leaning to that side, and just be with that for a minute and see. It's really evocative what you're saying, that there's this drain, there's this but the rest of you is being held up by your shoulder. So just
I just get this image of like untensed muscle that's just kind of hanging up this part.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it doesn't feel bad necessarily. It feels quite relaxed, but a bit, maybe borderline collapsed.
Okay. Yeah.
Bit. It's being dragged along by this
along.
more energised side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe it's a bit tired.
I'm a bit tired. Yeah. So just want to encourage you, just like we did. We gave some nice time to the right shoulder energy. So just feeling into that, letting all that be there, not trying to also get rid of the right shoulder energy because that's doing this nice job of holding things up. You know, just feel into all of that.
Yeah, it feels, even though I'm like, I know I look completely unbalanced, but it feels like there is some kind of balance there between a part of me that's tired and being carried and the part of me that's sort of stepping up to do the carrying.
Yeah.
Somehow it feels okay, though there probably is a part of my mind that would like to write them.
We'll try that. What's it like to write them, like you just did?
feel like a subtle pain in my right shoulder.
So you feel, when you do it, the riding, you feel a subtle pain in your right shoulder. Yeah.
I have an image of like it's having to like heft that side up actually.
Yeah, had to heft it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it wasn't this side coming online.
Yeah.
It was this side doing more work.
Yeah, doing the lift. Yeah.
And I'm aware of like a sensation down the, like from my throat, down the middle of my chest, which is like a bit icy.
Okay.
It's almost like those like glow sticks, but they're like a pendant kind of. Like
Yeah.
thicker.
And they can be like blue, like a blue light.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just being with that. I'm glad you're just naming things as they're coming up. Different feelings are coming up. You name them. You've got this icy pendant, this glow stick type feeling and image. I think it seems that you're often bringing feelings and images. They're coming in a package for you, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just being with that.
This almost feels like something I'm using to help prop the left side up.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes me think of just like bad habits.
Bad habits. Okay.
I kind of use bad habits.
Yeah. To prop the left side up.
Try and,
Yeah.
try and
Yeah.
hold up this kind of dead weight on this side.
Yeah. I just checked the time, and I'm aware we're sort of coming to the end of our time, but there's something I want to say about what we just kind of felt into here. It's something about this side, the part of you that's sort of like, that's tired and that feels kind of de-energized, or that feels like it's sort of like not engaged. Yeah? And if we think we've been talking parts, okay, maybe that's a part. There's something there. And then there's this other part that is energized, right? And that feels it's like stepping into something new and feels like it's doing the podcast, and here we are, we're doing something new, and wants to be seen and energized. And there's a relationship between the two. There's a kind of holding up or propping up. Yeah? And when you felt into it, there's also a propping up that feels like bad habits. So I felt like we've done just a feeling into, okay, we're feeling into being a client and a therapist here. And when we feel in what's present for you, that's the dimension, they're the dimensions that were present. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I imagine this is not the first time that you have grappled with or been aware of some dimensions of parts of you where there's like an active duo go-getter and there's a tired, more collapsed. I imagine that's something that you know about. Am I right in?
No, this really feels like new territory.
Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe in different ways that I can't now remember, I might have explored things like this. But this is a really new awareness.
Okay.
And the right side of my neck and my jaw have been tight for months.
Yeah, okay.
Which I don't think is a coincidence.
Okay.
Right now
Probably
with that
not, yeah.
kind of tension. But
Yeah.
it's a really nice new awareness that and my mind kind of goes to this part's doing like a great job.
Yeah.
And I see the things that I'm doing to try and help that part. But I'm interested to spend some time in my own time with what's going on over this side.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for stepping into this kind of dual role, this thing that we did. And we'll finish it up now. I want to do a kind of symbolic handing back to you of the... Oh, here, I can hand back your phone.
I shall time keep.
Yeah, of your podcast role.
Thank you. I'm back in my role and curious to talk about that little segment and really just a general conversation about it and anything that you were curious about or interested in it, and also how it fits with, if it does, with what we've been talking about. And also, you know, if I was your client and that was a piece of work we did in session at some point, what else would you be curious about? Where else would you be interested in exploring?
Well, you know, we were talking about that kind of non-doing, being with what is kind of thing. So I was just thought, okay, we're going to do a little therapy piece. Let's just do that. That was my idea. I don't know. I mean, we can look at how did it. What was the paradoxical theory of change bits in there? I was just trying to bring a kind of non-doing, non-change approach to what we were doing.
I mean, it's a very Gestalt approach, isn't it? That let's just expand your awareness of what's happening.
Exactly.
Which is that, it is that non-doing.
Yep.
But that you weren't looking to move anything or change anything, but okay, what else can we include?
Yep.
You asked me what else is happening in your body?
Yep.
What else do you notice?
Exactly. And just sort of starting where we are. I mean, you were sort of saying, well, this is a weird thing we're stepping into. Let's just like start there. Like, I mean, that's anything we do that's not there is probably not going to have that much life, not going to feel that lively. It's going to feel like playing at therapy, I think. That's not, because it's quite a lot, like it's quite a big thing that you're doing. You're hosting a podcast, you're stepping into this client role. That's like a lot to be doing. Anything outside of that, that's my sense. I mean, no, maybe I'm sure you could do interesting stuff outside of that, but it's probably not going to have the same charge or the same potential of just staying with what is most figural and just being with what's most figural.
Or the same authenticity. Because my intention was, what's, on the way here I was thinking, well, what is present for me? What might I bring in that little segment of therapy? And I had a couple of ideas of what I might bring and was just going to see if something else emerged as we spoke or go with one of those things that I could talk about this. This is something that's figural in my life that I'd like to explore. And that's fine.
It's fine.
But to go with what was actually happening right here, right now, I think was very authentic. And, I mean, it was that essence of non-doing, rather than me going like, here's a thing we could explore for the purposes of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to kind of stay with just that, because it was weird for me too. It's a weird thing to just in a conversation in this room to just go into doing. It was a weird thing for me. So it's interesting just to stay with that. And I feel like we could have pushed through that, right? We could have pushed through into, all right, Laura, what's your topic? Like, bring a thing that we'll practice the paradoxical theory of change on, right? And then what are we doing? We're kind of we're moving through, pushing through, moving horizontally away from the most figural thing.
To something that's on the agenda.
To something that's on the agenda, yeah. Which might not be bad. It's fine. You could do that, but I just think it's not going to have the same juice. You're not going to make some connection about, wow, I've been carrying tension for months and there's some connection. That's not going to happen if we move horizontally and go and do a thing over there.
Just as when a client comes and sits in the therapy room, if the thing that's most figural for them is the fact that they're sitting here in a therapy room and that feels like a big deal, and they go, well, let's talk about the thing that brought me here.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's skipping something.
It's skipping exactly what the figure is. Yeah. So, and it's not like nothing happens in that place, but you just go then to sort of some kind of talking about the thing or whatever. And hopefully, and this is what's so beautiful about Gestalt therapy, about the here and now approach, and about this paradoxical theory of change, and all of it is that hopefully it's more lively. possibilities of change are so much more if we just don't do anything. So the non-doing, right? I had zero agenda of helping you work out what the pain in your shoulder and your jaw and tension you've been carrying and how that's associated with you stepping into, a new part of yourself. I had no idea about that, no agenda for that. That just happened when we both, because you brought a lot of capacity to what we're doing as well, when we both just step out of the way and stop doing anything, that happened. Yeah, that wasn't your agenda. That wasn't my agenda. Whose agenda was it? Whose agenda was it? This is what's so beautiful about therapy. This is what's so amazing. We can let go into something that's not your agenda, not my agenda, something that wants to unfold. Yeah. Something in your shoulder and your jaw and the other side of your body that wants to unfold. We just have to get out of the way and let it unfold and discover what's there. It's so good, the agenda. It's so good that you had an agenda.
Yeah.
And that, like, we get this chance of just, like, and it's not that there's no agenda. I have an agenda. Like, there is an agenda. The paradoxical theory of change, it's an agenda, kind of. Like, it's kind of an agenda. There's no agenda-free thing, but it's a broad agenda. Mm-hmm. And it's an agenda that makes space for things to unfold.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, that question of whose agenda was that, when we didn't go for what my agenda was, what I thought I was going to bring, and when you kind of held me at, well, let's stay with this right now, with no particular idea of that this is where we're going to stay, or but just let's start here. I think you said that my body, nervous system, energy could bring into awareness something that I hadn't had access to and wouldn't have accessed had I gone. Yep. Well, we don't know, but probably wouldn't have accessed if we'd gone with the agenda I had brought.
Yep. That's good.
And so if I was your client and we had another 40 minutes in the session, what do you think could have happened next?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I would observe that often it feels like natural to kind of move in and out of bits like that, where it's really staying with, if people have the capacity, that kind of staying with what's present, images and feelings and staying with, and it's natural to move into, I think, sometimes doing some kind of meaning making. Oh, how does that fit? I start to do that at the very end as a way to kind of bring us out. Oh, I imagine this is something you know about, and you're like, no, you don't know something. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let's talk about that. Like, and then you might move back into more embodied. I don't know. I probably wouldn't normally spend like a whole session just like holding in. I mean, that does happen, but holding in just like what's present. Let's stay entirely with the kind of the, you can move in and out and explore what's happening in your life. There's some things that you've brought up that might be interesting to explore and talk about. You brought up you've been holding of the tension. You brought up there's something around the sort of habits that, that you're putting as bad habits. Is there something to explore there? There's something new coming into your life as well. I'd probably get curious about like what's happening in your life. What are the conditions? What's the field like that's allowing something new to come into being? And probably, I don't know that I always do this intentionally, but I think, there'd often just be a movement in and out a little bit of kind of like stuff like that we were doing, and then a bit more talking about, tell me about the bad habits, what they like, and just sort of in and out a little bit.
Yeah.
If people have the capacity for it. Some people not much capacity to do what you were doing.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of people. And so then you're doing a different kind of work.
And I really like that, and I think it's so Gestalt, like your first kind of response, first part of your response was, I don't know. That there is no prescriptive step-by-step from here of what you would do.
No.
We'd see what else happens and continue the exploration, and it might move to a conversation.
Totally.
It might move to the thing that I was originally going to bring now that we've been with what was really present.
Exactly.
But that you as a therapist are willing to absolutely not know
Yeah.
what is going to happen next.
That's a super important part of it. And it's a big part of, in Gestalt therapy, this cultivated uncertainty, this idea of, not knowing. It ties in a lot with the paradoxical theory of change. This idea that we're talking about of giving over to a kind of whose agenda, like giving over to kind of process. We need to strongly develop our tolerance as therapists for not knowing where the session's going to go. Like that's super important. That's part of getting out of the way. That's a vital ingredient of getting out of the way is having tolerance for not knowing.
And anytime I've caught myself as a therapist thinking that I know or wishing that I knew, it's incredibly clunky and misattuned. Like that not knowing requires attunement to the client and their experience to create that space to allow things to unfold.
Yep.
And that it's not that you're just kind of listlessly wandering, but in that presence.
Yep.
I feel, there's information that the therapist senses about what is helpful.
Yep. And that's the thing. Yeah. So let's say it's not knowing with a ground of like skill and a guiding philosophy to your practice and techniques that you've learned and all that. So it's not just like not knowing. It's not just like I know nothing about therapy. I'm not knowing. I'm just sitting opposite
And
you.
I'm going to do anything.
Yeah, and I'm doing anything. No, it's like a letting go into not knowing once you have a ground, once you have a kind of ground for like, a sense of what we kind of might do in that not knowing. And there's certain things, like I like that really like in Gestalt therapy, this idea of like the figure, follow the figure. Let's follow the figure. The figure being something that's like, it's like what's most lively, what's most alive now, right? So most alive for you was as you were coming into that therapy role was what was happening in your body and this interesting relationship between the shoulder and the rest of your body. And so that was our figure then. That figure's going to move. If we're sitting together for another 40 minutes, I imagine it might go other places. And the conversation opens up around, just the bit in the chest and the bad habits you might have or whatever. It goes somewhere else. But we want to keep tracking and staying within the not knowing, keep tracking and staying with what's most alive, what has the most energy, what's the most kind of vital bit of this. And as soon as I say that, I want to do the other thing is that other bits that feel dead as well. Like what is this? It's not knowing, but you're tuning. Like you're tuning in the not knowing. It's a good distinction to make. It's not just like not knowing. I don't know. I'm just sitting here doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not
knowing with a huge amount of training and skill and intuition.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or whatever word you might want it. Well, I guess it's connected to attunement.
Yep. Yeah, I think they're both good terms, yeah. Can I do one more quote? Because I saw there was only one other quote. These are slides from a thing I did recently. And this is from the Tao Te Ching. And so this might be a nice place to end, I expect. This is Lao Tzu. This is old. This is like, I forget. This is like, 2,600 years old. And this just shows that we're not doing anything new, all right? That we're not doing anything. It's like, okay, Gestalt therapy, we can call it the paradoxical theory of change, but this is sitting within a bed of like, it works and there's something really true in this way. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's been around for a long time. Yeah? So I'll read the quote. This is from the Tao Te Ching. If you want to become whole, let yourself be partial. If you want to become straight, let yourself be crooked. If you want to become full, let yourself be empty. If you want to be reborn, let yourself die. If you want to be given everything, give everything up.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If this conversation resonated with you, hit subscribe and click the link below to download the Source app. It's free to get started and helps you find a therapist who truly fits fast.